This is the Bat Pod.
Grab your bat microphone, it's time to start the show.
Welcome to the Bat Pod, a Batman comic book discussion podcast. On today's show, we'll be discussing Detective Comics 612.
Keen like Bruce Wayne, quick like Tim Drake, fierce like Damien. Grab your headphones, listen up, you know you love it. Drop the facade. Like the Dark Knight Detective, they've got some perspective. They're a pure crime-fighting collective. It's the Bat Pod.
Welcome to episode 116. My name is Bill Beer, and joining me tonight, the catnip of the Bat Pod, J. David Weeder.
I don't know how I feel about that.
No, you didn't like that one?
Oh, I didn't say I didn't like it. I said I don't know how I feel.
It's perfect for this episode. Perfect.
It's perfect, yeah.
Yes, perfect. Tonight, we have a special guest. And this special guest has been in podcasting for a while. I know him. David knows him. If you ever listen to the Fire and Water Podcasting Network, we have Shag Matthews.
The irredeemable Shag is here to say, meow.
Very irredeemable, from what I understand.
The latex outfit was not necessary, though.
That's you asked for Zoom. That's not my fault. I'm very irredeemable. You can read about me in both public bathrooms, places like that. So I promise you, it's all legit.
It's all true.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much, Bill. I'm so thrilled. I have been saying your name on podcasts for years, you know, from retweets and various things you've done with the network. And Dave, I've known you for ages, and I'm just so excited to be here to talk about my Batman phase.
I'd say we're glad to have you, but we're not. I'm not. Bill might be.
Well, I do have to say, you know, in previous episodes, and we've only been podcasting, me and David here for 6-7 episodes. He mentions you a lot, but I can't say it's a positive thing. It's usually something like, oh, you had to mention Shag.
I heard my name on an episode or two ago. You said it 3 times, so I appear like Beetlejuice. So
Right. So it did happen, David. You got what you wished.
Restraining order lapsed, so.
Well, it's been 7 years since we recorded together, Dave. Yeah. So I think that's the natural length of a podcast restraining order.
There you go. This is a first. I do have to say. Never restraining orders is a first for the Bat Pod. So when we have guests on the podcast here, I always like to get a little info, you know, background, secret origin info. So the first thing I'm going to ask is, give us your Batman comic book origin.
Well, when I was born, I came out actually with a rolled up comic in my back pocket. It was a sad sack. It wasn't Batman. But so to be specific about Batman, so I don't remember a time where I didn't know about Batman, right? So I grew up watching Super Friends, the Filmation Batman cartoon with Batmite and things like that. I had to do a little bit of research. I did find the very first Batman comic I owned. Not physically at the house, but I mean, I looked online and found the cover. It was Batman 294. So that's going back to September 1977. No idea why I ended up with this thing. It had this really creepy cover where the Joker has gassed Batman and Batman's face is blank and it just looks terrifying. And it was part of that many deaths of Batman storyline that was like multi-issue where Batman had died and there was this big trial with all the villains to discover who killed Batman. And that was the last part. So I had that. I don't even know if I could read the word balloons when I had it. I just remember looking at the pictures over and over when I was a kid. So that was my earliest one. I will mention one other one just because it like haunted me for years. From November 1978 was World's Finest 255. It was one of those big dollar comics. So it's got like a bunch of stories in it, right? And the Creeper was in there, which freaked me out and still does to this day. But anyway, the Batman story, Batman and Superman end up dealing with this other Batman that apparently existed before Bruce Wayne ever took on the guise. It's turned out to be this Native American Batman in like maybe the 30s or the 40s. They didn't really give a year. They didn't pigeonhole it. But anyway, it's another one of those where as a kid, I don't remember ever being able to read the words, but it really stuck with me. That's where I started with Batman. And then, see him in Justice League, all these things. But where I really became a collector, where my Batman phase began was somewhere around 88, 89. I don't know if you heard about it. There was a little bit of popularity boost of Batman for some reason. People got into it. And I got a bunch of trades. I got the Dark Knight Returns trade, the year 1. I got the hardcover. I picked up the year 2 back issues. I got The Killing Joke, and I even bought the Death in the Family trade, the one that came out like 15 seconds after that last issue dropped. And that's what really got me passionate about Batman.
Yeah, I'm right around the same era. It was right around Batman 400 when that came out. That's when I started collecting it monthly. So I'm right around the same time. So all those detective issues, it was Batman and Detective until we got into Nightfall and that sort of thing, and then other books were added. But yeah, I've been there and I never left. Fortunately and unfortunately, it all depends.
Just for legal analysis, Shag, you'd say your Batman phase really began in 1989?
I don't. It's 87, 88, 89. It's somewhere in there. I can't remember when I got these trades. It was before the movie. I know that, but it's somewhere around there. Yeah.
When did it end? Because bear in mind, you're on a Batman podcast right now.
But we're talking about old comics, so that's where I'm okay. It ended sometime after No Man's Land. No Man's Land, I was all in on. I absolutely loved it. It's almost a little bit of a jump the shark, not in a bad way, but the true definition of jump the shark is like things are so good, they're never that good again. So for me, like No Man's Land was just so incredible. When they get back to the monthly comics, I had a hard time still engaging because I had hit the pinnacle of amazingness and I just kind of faded away. And now I look at other people and point and laugh when they're still in their Batman phase.
I feel like it might have actually kept going. You still reading Daredevil? Because that's Marvel's Batman, according to many.
I am still a very active fan of Daredevil. Yeah, I don't read it every month, but I go through big phases where I'll read like 30 issues in a run, catch up a couple years worth. So yeah, I'd say I'm still in my Daredevil phase.
So legally speaking, being a fan of Marvel's Batman, you're still in a Batman phase of sorts.
I feel like there's something along the lines of a sneaky lawyer trick that's happening here. Wasn't that what you called it on Dave's Daredevil
That's what
podcast?
I call it, yep.
Yeah, I feel like I'm being the subject of a sneaky lawyer trick. So yeah, I guess you could call my Daredevil phase a Marvel version of my Batman phase. Yeah, that's fine.
Dear Chris Franklin and Ryan Daly. Got him.
So yeah, the other thing that I wanted to ask you while we have you here is it's always interesting to me because I have this long history of podcasting, which nobody even knows about because they were always usually bad. I mean, I mentioned it on here before. My first one was like in 2008, and I did like 2 episodes. It was just me, and then iTunes was the only thing available at the time, and somebody gave me a review, and then I quit for 3 years because they were not the kindest, and then. Then I started the first version of the Bad Pod in 2011, and it continued to where we are today. There's been, podcasts that you would start and has got 10 episodes, and it's but this one has lasted the longest. What is your comic book podcast origin? How did you get started?
It was a friend of mine actually pushed me into it. I was very close with my old college friends for a number of years, and we all used to get together every year and go to Dragon Con together. We do this is as adults too, adults that already have children. We'd still act like we were college kids. We'd all pack into one hotel room together and crash together. And anyway, while we were there, my buddy said we should all do a podcast together. And so we started doing a podcast. It's called The Unique Geek. It's still around. It's kind of the semi-official podcast of Dragon Con, actually. It was kind of a panel show, and I loved it, but it was absolute chaos. It was just everyone talking whenever they wanted about whatever they wanted. It was crazy. It was fun, but did that for a little while. That's actually how I met Michael Bailey and dragged him into it as well. And so he started podcasting with us. And then I kind of sort of drifted away from there. And at the time I was running blogs. I did a blog all about Firestorm fan.
Mm-hmm.
And Rob Kelly was doing a blog all about Aquaman Shrine. And we had teamed up on blog crossovers a couple times here and there. And then he got it in his head. He wanted to do a podcast, reached out to me. We came up with the ridiculous notion of pairing Aquaman and Firestorm, which makes no sense whatsoever. Thankfully, we tumbled onto a great name out of it, Fire and Water, and that's what born our network. And really, even though the Fire and Water Aquaman and Firestorm show is what launched it, I really think Who's Who is kind of what founded our network, because so many people came to listen not because of us, but because they love Who's Who. And we became friends with all this community and got to know all the listeners, and the listeners got to know us, and this huge community of friends built. And a lot of those friends ended up on our network or our partners or just whatever. And so that's where it all kind of grew out of.
Yeah, I remember there were like the Invasion
Yeah.
podcast was on there, and we did like every issue and the side issues. I remember listening to those and
Siskoid and Boss. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. So some great stuff there.
So, well, thank you for asking. I mean, that's thousands of episodes later, but we started interestingly the same year as you, 2011.
Except I don't 1,000. No.
Well, I don't mean like I've done 1,000, but if you collectively pull in Ryan Daly,
right?
Siskoid, yeah.
Rob may have done 1,000 at this point, though.
That's quite possibly true. Yeah. We in 2011 for us, I don't know if it was the same impetus for you, but we're like, oh, this is a great chance to start a podcast. There's this cool new thing called the New 52. This is going to be great. We'll start a podcast to launch right in sync with that. That's actually what was the impetus to get it done.
Well, that's how my original started. New 52 started. We started right at issue 1, and all the books were at issue 1. So that's how it started. And then, you know how it went with a lot of those books. They kind of just went off the cliff, and so did the podcast at that point.
Yeah, we stopped reviewing the New 52 after not too long.
But Batman didn't change for the most part. Some of the other characters changed a lot, and we had talked Batman number 0 a few episodes ago, and we just mentioned Superman. They're all back basically to how they were previously. So
really enjoyed that discussion about it because I always wanted to read that Scott Snyder Year Zero, and listening to your podcast really got me energized to think about it now. And I've got DC Unlimited Infinites or whatever it's called, DC Universe Infinite. So I'm probably going to dive in there, and it's y'all to blame.
I recommend it. So, I'm happy about that.
Yeah. Did you learn anything like maybe you shouldn't eat cake or anything like that, or if somebody brings, and we'll have that too coming up. What we learned about this episode, but you should really listen to what we tell you all out there because it's really important stuff sometimes. It could save your life.
I'm going to get a little journal and start writing down every episode, what you learn. I'm going to put it under my pillow at night to make sure I remember.
Okay, that's the first. But no, I used to have a boss, okay, and I don't know where this is going on. But I had a boss, and he's like, when I was single, this was in the 90s, and he's like, you know what? He says, you're single, right? He says, you want to meet a lady? He says, put everything that you want in a lady in a list and write this list and stick it under your pillow at night and it will come true. I never actually tried that, but I always like telling that story because it's kind of out there. So
there's a whole episode with Ross and Joey and Chandler and friends about making lists about women that don't end well. So it's probably best you didn't do that.
Right. So let's go ahead and we're going to head to the book.
Come on, Robin. To the Batcave. We haven't one moment to lose.
Okay, our book tonight is Detective Comics 612. Your writer is Alan Grant. Pencils, Norm Brayfogle. Inker, Steve Mitchell. Colorist, Adrian Roy, letterer Todd Klein, and editor Dennis O'Neil. In this issue, Batman saves an old lady from skater punks in Robinson Park, throwing one of them in the bushes nearby where he finds a corpse of a man apparently devoured by some kind of animal. At that moment, Thomas Blake realizes that his Siberian tiger has escaped into Gotham and he goes looking for his pet as the Catman. Catman searches for his tiger while the GCPD investigate. Reporter Sarah Dolman accuses Catwoman of being responsible for the grim murder on live TV. Catwoman sees this on TV and is outraged, so she goes to intervene. Batman finds the tiger while it's attacking another thug. Catwoman sees him and slices the bat rope, forcing Batman to fight the tiger with his bare hands. Batman beats the tiger into submission while Catwoman arrives and throws Catman off a roof. Catman survives as he stumbles past two shady animal catchers. These men have been catching stray cats all night so they can sell to a research lab. When they see Catman, they are terrified and swear to never hurt cats again. Later, Catwoman finds Sarah Dolman and angrily tells her that she doesn't eat people, as this is being recorded on live TV. Catwoman slashes at the camera. In the aftermath, the tiger is taken to the zoo, and Catwoman returns home and is very happy. So, Detective Comics 612. I asked Shag when he came on the show, bring a book with you. And this was your pick. Tell us, why did you pick this book?
It actually ties directly to my Batman phase. So I mentioned all those trades I had bought, right?
Mm-hmm.
This was the first issue I started buying on a monthly basis. Because like I had, in addition to the trades, I had picked up year 3 because it just looked amazing, right? And then I followed that. I'm like, oh, okay, what's this Lonely Place of Dying? That looks kind of cool. But then I stopped. I'm like, okay, I gotten enough. I guess I just like the big popcorn Batman summer blockbusters.
Mm-hmm.
But then, for whatever reason, and I can't even tell you why, this issue grabbed my attention on the stands. I picked it up, and from then on, I was buying Detective and Batman every month, all the way until after No Man's Land. And I don't know whether it's just the amazing art of the cover. I don't know whether it's because Catman was in Who's Who, and I always remember that fondly. Or maybe the previews catalog was starting to say more Tim Drake was coming, because Tim Drake was kind of my spirit animal there. I don't know. But this was the one, man. This is the issue that made me become a month-to-month Batman fan.
I'd never read this until now. I'm a little ashamed. And of course, the creative team is just the GOAT. And I was really saddened as I realized, oh, they're no longer with us. It just kind of hit me. I know I've read Grant and Breyfogle since they both passed, but this time it hit me. Also, on the first page, did you guys notice the Alice in Wonderland statue?
I did. I have a question about that. What did you notice?
Well, I just realized how weird Alice in Wonderland overlays onto Batman, because you have multiple Batman Alice in Wonderland themed villains or themes. I'm like, why does that fit so well?
What triggered in my mind isn't the sort of famous Alice in Wonderland statue in a park, isn't that in Central Park? Because I remember an issue of Firestorm where they were dealing with a statue of the Alice in Wonderland, all the characters, and it was in Central Park. So I just didn't know, and Dave, you being a New York geography guy, throwing that back at you, I didn't know if that was just, maybe this is supposed to be New York originally, or, Gotham's kind of always New York, right? Dave's on the Googles.
Yes, it is in New York. It is in Central Park. And it is almost exactly that statue. They're on mushrooms. Wow. Okay. Yeah, I hadn't put that together, but you're right.
A credit to Pat Broderick in my case. I can't really claim. I just remember it from Firestorm.
That's cool. That's cool. I didn't know that at all.
The Gotham, Metropolis, New York, New Jersey thing has always been murky.
So you guys talked about that on an episode not too long ago about
Right.
where it is. So I always go back to the Atlas of the DC Universe by Paul Kupperberg. That's my Bible for geography in DC.
Was that part of the role-playing game?
It
Or
was.
was that a completely set? Okay, that's what I thought.
It was part of the role playing game, but it's so tangentially involved with a role playing game. It's more just a reference book. I mean, honestly, you could put it right next to your Who's Who, and it just makes sense when you start flipping through it, because it gives you all the history of the cities. It gives you maps. It shows you the whole United States. Oh, here's Star City, here's Central City, et cetera, et cetera.
So I have to ask, where does it say Gotham is?
Well, according to the Atlas, it puts Gotham City in the southeastern zone of New Jersey, right along the water. So it puts it down to New Jersey. And then, because Metropolis always has to be across the bay, right? Metropolis is in the southern part of Delaware, but there's a giant body of water between them. So it works quite perfectly. And they wedge Dover, for whatever reason in the map, in between the two.
Interesting.
Got to have that Dover.
Right.
That's weird, because I live not far from DC or Baltimore. So Dover, the family goes to Ocean City a lot, and Delaware is not that far north.
They also put Civic City up near there too, by the way.
Oh, Civic City.
Yeah, I think that's the Atom, right? The original Atom, if I remember right. I don't know. Maybe I have that wrong.
Where's Hub City? Now I need to get this book.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, Dave, Hub City looks to be at the bottom of Illinois.
Ah.
Kind of a strange place to put it, because I mean, Hub City is pretty much supposed to be Chicago, right? I mean, that's pretty.
So.
Yeah,
and that's at the northern part of Illinois.
Yeah, so interesting. Okay, yeah, Atlas of DC Universe, cannot recommend it enough. And you can find some of these maps online too if you can't get your hands on the book.
Okay, we're gonna back up here for a minute.
we took control. The train went off the tracks there, Bill. Sorry,
because I want to talk about the cover real quick. And this is a Norm Breyfogle cover. Anybody that doesn't know, he's my favorite Batman artist. And just looking at this cover, what he does with capes is magical. It's pure magical. I love this cover. This has always been one of my favorite covers, just because you see Catman and Catwoman there in the background. They're like in dark, but the yellow cape is flowing, the cat on his chest, and then Batman looks like he's being clawed by cats. What did you guys think of this cover?
The cover is incredibly striking. I'm glad you pointed out Catman's silhouette. That's what attracted me to this, is the giant glowing yellow cat on his chest. As you said, the Spawn-like cape, although this predates Spawn, obviously. It looks fantastic. And I love Norm Breyfogel's signature, if you notice, actually flows out of one of the cape lines. So it's really nicely done the way he did that. And I had to go back and look because I wasn't sure on this. This is actually the first issue with this Detective Comics logo. Sadly, it only lasted about a year, this particular logo, but because this was my jumping on point, to me, this is what the Detective Comics logo is supposed to look like. For me, that's what it is. And Breyfogle, it's also he's my Batman artist as well. I'm right there with you. I love this cover. It's fantastic. The glowing green eyes on the tiger just makes me want to say, it's the eye of the tiger. Anyway, sorry.
I was going to mention the logo too. This is a fantastic logo. The V in Detective is a bat. And Breyfogle is such an awesome artist. He made Catman look cool before Secret Six, if anybody's read Secret Six.
Yes.
He managed to make Catwoman cool without Gail Simone.
I think this is unless I'm mistaken, I think this is the debut of this costume for Catman.
It didn't last long. It works when Breyfogle does it, but
yeah, this particular costume, this is the debut of that. As we go in here, I'll mention, his first appearance was in Detective 311, and there are some similarities between the story and something that happens in that particular book. But I know in previous issues of Detective Comics, a few years previously, Catman thought that his costume had healing properties. So he accused Batman of trying to kill him, and he had his face scarred, but they had took part of his cape, and he tried to get part of this cape back because he thought it was going to heal his face because his costume wasn't whole, and he thought getting this piece would heal him, and that didn't work out so well. And then this is his next appearance after that. So,
and he doesn't have a scarred face in this one, unless I'm mistaken, right?
No, he doesn't. He's a goofy character compared to what we get in Gail Simone's Secret Six, where he turns into like an awesome character that is way more interesting than anything that we got previously. But so we're going to jump in this book. We already talked about the first page since that was brought up out of order, but it's all good.
Chaos. It's chaos.
We have these two skater punks, and they are a bunch of punks because they not only steal her purse, but the second one knocks her over. Seriously. But yeah, we find out here the Batman is, and it's actually we were talking about this scene that has, the Alice in Wonderland characters, and you see in the back, crossing the moon, you see Batman swinging. That's a kind of a cool looking at the top there. But then we get in here and we see that a tiger has mauled somebody. The lady is kind of distressed because of her cat. And Batman's like, "Oh, if I see your cat out and about, I'll return your cat." So
you're just gonna find a random cat and be like, "Here's your cat." Like,
right?
My cat's an orange tabby. What is he doing? This is a tuxedo cat. Get out of here, Batman.
Did he get her a dress, or what's going on there?
I love Breyfogle on these pages with the skate rats. How dynamic the movement is, the speed lines, even without having to change panels. Like on page 2, he uses a tree limb as a panel border. If you really look at it, there's the top image where they're chasing the skaters, and then the bottom image beneath where he's kicking the guy. I love the dynamic movement that he does with the skateboarders. It just looks great.
And he does that with the Batmobile a lot of times, with the way it's speeding at night or different things. It's very well done when you see movement. And that's one thing I always noticed with him.
He has this weird paradox where his art is both smooth curves and sharp angles. and that's somehow evocative of motion. I can't figure it out logically, but it works.
No, the other thing I really like is a lot of times you see Batman, the front of his chest is like in a shadow, except for the yellow oval. I really like seeing that. That really stands out when he does that.
You talking about on page 3?
Yes.
Yeah. I love the next panel where Batman is all silhouette except for the eyes and the face. I love it when he does that. And now one of his signature moves is, and we don't get at this issue, is him drawing Batman how people perceive him rather than the way he really looks. So there's a little bit of that going on here with the shape of the Batman's head and everything. But in general, I love that all black silhouette where you just see the eyes and the face. I think it looks great.
And then we get the most awesome character in this particular book. We get our Catman, the Catman, and his tiger has what is the tiger? We've been feeding that tiger because it looks like it's on steroids or something. The way it ripped open, it broke a chain, it ripped open that cage, and then you get. What did you think of the Catman's costume here? The big reveal here.
First of all, the reveal is amazing. The bottom of page 4, it's an up-looking shot, and it's really hard to make a yellow costume look cool. I mean, it's just very, very difficult, and he pulled it off. Dave, I love what you just said about rounded corners and still being angular. I mean, he really pulls it off here with Catman's costume. There's tons of angles, but there's also the round curves of the body, and the torso and everything. And it looks so sharp. I love one of the things I love throughout this whole thing. I love how Catman's ears are always moving. Like they flop left, they flop right. Here, they're flopped to the side. Brayfogel's obviously having fun with it. And I absolutely adore that. And back to the tiger real quick. I mean, he's bringing what looks like maybe a baby goat or a baby lamb or something. So that's what the tiger's eating. I mean, he's eating well, apparently.
I like what you said about his ears moving, because it makes me think of if you read Mad Magazine or Cracked Magazine, the parodies, Batman's ears were always depicted that way. So Brayfogel's basically taking it back.
Sort of like that scene from, it was either Batman Forever or Batman and Robin, where he's running at the end. Yeah. Batman's ears are wiggling.
Oh my gosh. Was that a Batman and Robin reference?
Could have been. It depends on if I got the movie right or not.
It was at the tail end of Batman Forever. That was their debut with the Caped Crusader. But yeah, yellow is hard to pull off. And this is as close as you get to pulling it off with this. It's a little Wolverine, a little Punisher, but it works.
It's got some Timberwolf going too with the chest symbol.
And his ears, the way they move, I guess is based on, here he looks kind of intense. Later on, they like really look kind of droopy, like a rabbit or something. So yeah, then we get this scene in the park where you got a reporter set up and she's like interviewing Commissioner Gordon. He really doesn't want to deal with her at all. But I love the way Brayfogle, and I'm sorry, but I'm going to keep bringing him up like this whole issue, because he has he has a very iconic Commissioner Gordon, and Gordon just has an attitude with her, and she's suggesting that it may be Catwoman, the mysterious Catwoman. Commissioner is like, he just doesn't want any part of that. He doesn't want to have to deal with her. They set up pretty quick, they're in the park. They check the zoo and no animals been released. And then we get a scene with Catwoman. So between those two scenes, Catwoman is reacting, and it's a little different here because she actually growls a little bit, which I don't know if I've seen previously her respond that way, but I think her issue was titled Cats, so we're getting a little, emotion here.
I dreamed a dream.
I think some of what we're seeing is this is still very early days for Catwoman in the post-crisis universe. We got her in year 1. Then there was that miniseries. I want to say Brozowski drew it, if I remember right, and I might be wrong on that. But this isn't too long after that, so she actually hasn't had a ton of appearances. So I think they're still sort of feeling out what this version of Catwoman is going to be like. Along those same lines, I think it's kind of funny with this early in the post-crisis era where they're talking about Batman openly on the news. Like, Batman found the body. And I'm thinking, isn't this the era where he's an urban legend? Where, they kind of deny his existence some?
they kind of waffled back and forth with the urban legend thing, because there is even an issue that comes much later where it's revealed for the first time that Batman's on camera as he walks out. But it kind of had a fine line of, yes, he is an urban legend. It depends who the writer was. It kind of waffled back and forth.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I want to echo real quick. You're absolutely right about Breyfogel's Commissioner Gordon. That is like this in my head. This is what Commissioner Gordon looks like. Those glasses, the reflective, you don't see the eyes, the droopy mustache, the thinning hair. I mean, the trench coat with the flipped up, popped up collar like he's in the 80s. This is Gordon to me. It's great. It's beautiful.
Yeah, Breyfogel's Gordon was always, it looked older, it looked age appropriate, but he's always had a little bit more weight to him. And that felt right for somebody who's essentially got a desk job.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fair. I can totally see that. And a little bit of grizzled too. Like, he's like not old Westy, but the kind of guy who's got some rough edges.
He's seen some stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the way Gordon is there.
So how tenacious is this reporter? Like, she's told, Gordon shuts her down and she comes right back. She's trying to get some headlines, man. If this was the internet, she'd be going clickbait article headlines.
Right. It's like, the Star or one of those, the Inquirer sort of thing. It reminds me sort of that. They're just trying to get anything. Well, then we get a couple of these cat catchers or whatever you want to call them. They're luring these cats in, and we'll get another look at the Lux cat food, which must be pretty good because they're luring them in and catching these things. And I don't know if this is the company they work for, but it's called Schrodinger Delivery. Are you all familiar with that?
Yeah.
You are?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Schrodinger's cat? Absolutely.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm going to tell you what it is anyway for everybody.
I mean, I've never heard of it. Please, Bill, enlighten me.
So Schrodinger's cat in quantum mechanics is a thought experiment that illustrates the paradox of quantum superposition. In the thought experiment, a hypothetical cat may be considered both alive and dead while it's unobserved in a closed box as the result of a fate being linked to a random subatomic event that may or may not occur. It was devised by physicist Erwin Schrödinger in 1935.
I've always heard of it. I mean, yes, that's obviously textbook definition what it is, but I've always heard of it more in philosophical discussions, and the idea is, you've got a cat that's inside of a box and there's like a cyanide capsule in there that may or may not have opened at this point. So while the box is closed, at any given time, the cat could be alive. The cat could be dead. It's a pretty morbid, creepy thing.
Yes. Yeah.
And if you've ever put a cat in a box before, they don't really shut up. So for the most part, I think you would actually know whether it's alive
if
or
the
dead.
Cat was dead or alive. Yeah.
Right.
Well, anyway, that's these guys. And they seem like smart fellas because they're getting $10 a cat and they're telling stories. And it's like, last year, old Dawson told us about some geek busting open a pyramid and found 250,000 mummified cats inside. It says, what did he do with them? He sold them to Liverpool, England as coffee table conversation pieces. Just a little humor they added in here. And then Batman's on the scene, flying again. I like how they use, the shape of the cape like in a shadow behind him. It's a little different, so I do like. And then we have Catman swinging, and again with the cape.
So I want to chime in here if I can. Yep. And Dave, please interrupt because I feel like I'm totally bogarting all the cool stuff here. But like one of the things I love of what Breyfogle does here with Catman is he's showing us how his equipment works. He's taking the time to show how the cat claws fly up there, the button he presses to release it, all that stuff. I like that he took the time to show how the equipment works. I just dig that.
Yeah, it reminds me of when they would do the diagrams of like Daredevil's Billy Club, or you remember the Marvel Universe trading card series 2 when they showed how Cap's shield worked. Whenever I see stuff like this, I'm like, yes, feed me, make me believe it even more. It's like Star Trek. Half the science is made up, but they make you believe it because they just commit.
It's the Condor Man of superhero stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I like how, when Batman uses his Batarang, especially in fighting, Brayfogle shows him throwing, knocking people down while he's combating. So I do like how they illustrate that here. And then we see the tiger for the first time. And there's like this split panel, where Batman reacts and Catman reacts, and they're both swinging. I like it's like a dual panel. I do like seeing that. I mean, the city is kind of the background, and mostly it's about them swinging, about how their capes are, and that sort of thing.
I feel like one thing that's sort of implied, but they don't really show here is, I mean, Batman and Catman, there's so many similarities in their motifs and things like that, that Catman could have been more like Batman. Now, I know they've done stories like that later. Gail Simone did and things like that. But but I feel like this panel really sort of demonstrates those similarities.
Yeah, in the first appearance, they had in Detective Comics, the Catman, he basically mirrored himself between Batman and Catwoman. But all his like Batman has all these gimmicky things like the Batarang. It was all cat related, but it was like his opposite that was a cat. Well, it was really goofy back in the Golden Age, and it just makes you laugh. And here they kind of making more of a serious take of Catman with the same sort of thing. So
I hope he calls his swing line like something based on catgut or something like that.
Oh, there was a bar that he went to rob, and it had a fiddle there, a cat playing the fiddle, and the fiddle strings were made from cat gut. And he was fighting Batwoman, and he says, "I can't believe that a cat gut helped me out." And it was like the cat catapult, the cat vehicle, there wasn't a kitty litter box or anything, but it was, corny stuff like that.
Let's be honest. If Green Arrow can be Batman with arrow theme, Batman can do the same thing with cat theme.
Right. But yeah, he catches up with the tiger here. He sees this thug being mauled. This is pretty entertaining because we get Catman. He throws his little catarang, cuts Batman's bat rope, and Batman's basically in trouble because the tiger's getting ready to take him out. And this is when we see Catman, cuddling up with his tiger. And there's where the ears go all floppy. They go all floppy, and he's this big smile on it. And it's funny. It's kind of corny. So that's a very corny.
But I love it. I love that amount of cheese.
But yeah, we get these morons that, are catching cats here, and they're telling more stories that are just, I don't know, who hired these guys?
Some creepy lab. Now, I gotta say, we've been waxing Norm Brayfogle's car here, right? But we should be waxing Alan Grant's car too, because if you look at this, the way this is layered, it's really intelligent. I took a few minutes to stop and think about the way he layered this as a story. You got the A plot, which is the loose tiger, right, and Catman running around. The B plot, Catwoman, she's out there dealing with stuff, and then the C plot, or you can interchange B and C, whichever, is these cat catchers, the Schrodinger's labs folks, right? And Grant has taken these three completely separate things and woven it together that it all comes together in a beautiful climax. I mean, it's just really expertly done.
I love that the climax actually ends up with Catman in this metaphorical box as the car, Schrodinger's box. So he was alive and dead until the door was open.
Oh, I didn't even see that. Wow.
There you go. See what Alan Grant did there?
That's pretty cool. I like that a lot.
I thought Catwoman wore that gray costume for a shorter amount of time. I really did. And apparently it wasn't until 1993 that they switched her up to that purple bodysuit with the long gloves and the long boots. I thought that was way early.
I think that was Jim Blanton did that in the showcase, or right after the showcase, right around Catwoman #1. Yeah.
I think you mean Jim, I like boobs balance.
Well, I was going to say, yeah. I was going to say, DC said, wait a minute, this chick, if we really sex her up, it'll sell a lot of comics. And it worked.
Yeah.
And I use all of those phrases as a joke. Please understand.
Would you say that she's attractive or fetching or?
She is an intelligent woman, Dave. She's got a lot of skills. She is clever. And by the way, she happens to be hot.
So direct all questions, comments, complaints to Once a Time a Geek on Twitter. Not the Bat Pod. No. But yeah, we get this tiger, and Catman basically sicks the tiger when he takes Batman's utility belt and ties him to a pole, basically, or an antenna. It's an antenna, and he has a little fight with Batman, which is kind of cool. I like how these panels are. They're like horizontal panels, and you see a lot of action here. And I love seeing action like this. And I can't say that you see, even comics nowadays where some of the artists do Batman, they miss out. Some of the action is like in between the panels. I like that we see all the action right here.
Yeah, the horizontal panels made me think of anime. The way, like, I just see it moving. The way anime will layer up different scenes as people are fighting. I don't know if Breyfogle was an anime fan, but immediately it moved in my own head.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, it's also very cinematic. With the wide panels like that. I actually had my note on the panel design was just that it's very interesting, and I love how Breyfogle varies it from page to page. It's not revolutionary, but it's just interestingly done. It's very clever. It's well done, and it's very effective, as you guys just pointed out.
Yeah, absolutely. And we get this fight with the cat. Catwoman intervenes, and she's fighting with Catman. She actually throws Cat. You see him being tossed, and then he lands on top of their little van, and they're like freaking out because it's a giant cat. And then Batman, you have the Schrodinger delivery van taking off, and you have that action again with a car. It's like screeching off, and I like that. And Batman and the Catwoman has a chance to help him out, but they're in a different place, and she's like, those two are big enough to look out for themselves. And then we get a scene here where Batman is riding this tiger, which is pretty interesting because if we go back to the original, and Catman is riding a mechanical cat in his first appearance, and he has like these bars that he's controlling the cat. And it's going after Batman and Robin. And it sort of reminded me about that issue that he's riding this cat and he ends up taking him out. But I thought that was kind of callback to maybe that issue.
Oh, that's nice. I amongst the fight and the illustrations you were talking about, what I want to point out is on the bottom of page 16, and I really only noticed this because I read it in a panel by panel mode on the DC app. But in the bottom panel on page 16 is such a signature move for Breyfogle. It's where the tiger, the only detail, like the eyes and the top of his head. Everything else are these weird sort of vertical lines, but it's something he does to illustrate shadow and hard to see. And it's such a Breyfogle move. And if you showed me just that panel, I would instantly know who the artist was because it's just that much defining.
Right. And the other thing he does is, that the character sometimes, Batman in particular in this one, overlaps the panel above. With his head. And I like seeing that sometimes. Catwoman does it at a panel near the top.
I love that it looks like Batman is using Daredevil's Billy Club. I mean, it's the antenna, but straight up looks like when Alex Ross was trying to design a Batman costume for Dick Grayson, he went with the blue and he added Dick's excrement sticks. That's what this looks like.
Yeah.
It's also Batman using the environment, so that's a whole win right there.
And then there's a big 3/4 page panel where Batman just body slams the cat and takes his bat rope and I guess he puts it to sleep. And he's like, give in. And I love how they do the eye slits there for Batman. And that's another Breyfogle thing, and the way they do the eye slits. And I really like that particular page because you get 4 different things in this 3/4 page. You get some action there, and then a close up of his cow.
I like also, I mean, the idea of the panel being Batman doesn't want to kill the cat,
right? Right,
because he knows it's not the cat's fault. The cat is just doing what nature takes, and wants him to do. So Batman's trying to save the cat, but also save his life at the same time.
Rick Miller would have written it completely differently.
So then you have your two goofy guys. They ran away and they said, whatever that cat thing, threw it right off top. It says, Uncle Ernie will kill me if his van is trashed. They open the back and it's, Catman fell through the van, but we see all these cats coming out. I don't know how they were going to get them out anyway, because, okay, it's like, let's take something, let's shake up a dozen cats and then open the door. What do you think's going to happen?
Confetti with claws.
Right.
I just realized that Catwoman inadvertently saved the lives of all these cats by throwing Catman in there.
Good point. Good point.
Yes. Yeah.
It all really does come together.
She knew what she was doing.
And you notice these guys find religion too.
Yes.
I mean, they see Catman, and it's a judgment, and they're like, they're praying, basically saying, "I'll never do anything bad again. Please, just let me live."
Yeah, they just run away. There's a scene here where Catwoman actually confronts this reporter. She's doing another report, updating the slang, and says, "And the news is there is no news." And then Catwoman just appears out of a tree. Her head kind of appears down. She's on a limb, and she makes sure she states she does not eat people. And she's slashing at the cameras. The camera goes dark, and then you see her, hanging upside down, tied to a tree, hanging from this tree. So I did like how, even though this Catwoman is, as we said, they're trying to figure out how to. I think she did react as best as she could in this scene. And then we get more Batman. Batman shows up to, Commissioner Gordon, and we get another panel where you see Batman's cow, but you don't see some of the features. You see his thigh slits and you see the mouth. And that's another Brayfogle type of thing on a close-up I like to see. I really enjoyed that.
I love that Batman has to point out that, no, he's not joking about the tiger. That thing.
Well, I think it's the name of the where the tiger's found is because the tiger is found on hot tin roof. So, because cat on a hot tin roof,
Right?
Yeah, that Brayfogle Batman is. I mean, I know we just keep saying it over and over. The guy was such a talent. I mean, he was such a talent. He was the Batman artist of the '90s, as far as I'm concerned, and it's just this issue is a perfect example of why he became who he was.
Absolutely. And this Grant Brayfogle team, they work together a lot, especially I'll just mention about this detective run. They were on there from issues 583 to 594, and then again 601 through 617. And during that time, we got the Ventriloquist and Scarface first appearance. We got the Mud Pack. We got Anarchy first appearance. And you can say what you want about that character, but we got some good stuff. Unfortunately, they didn't do Year 2, which is a classic to some. But yeah, I loved how they worked together. And I mean, Alan Grant, we haven't mentioned him too much, but everything I've read of him has been enjoyable.
Yeah, second that. Absolutely.
Oh, I love his psychological take. And these two just peanut butter and jelly. And I know you can have one without the other and it's fine, it's good, but put them together and it's magic.
And then we get a final page, with a different reporter, because the original reporter, she went to the hospital because she's in shock as a result of the brutal treatment at the hands of the mysterious Catwoman. And then they show, Catwoman at the end. She got her Lux cat food, and her cat is very happy, and they're purring together. Any final thoughts? We'll start with David on this issue.
This was a really, really good one and done. I mean, it was perfectly self-contained. It brought Catman into a story where he was not full of the comic relief, but not the big bad. And you got Catwoman as well. There's no downside to this issue.
It's just a lot of fun. It's not one that everyone's going to immediately remember because there's not a huge mythology building here, or it doesn't change things forever. It's just like Dave said, it's a fun done in one, and obviously it was enough to hook me as a reader for a very long Batman phase. This is what did it right here.
When you mentioned what book you were picking, I didn't remember what it was off the top of my head, so I had to look. But as soon as I saw the cover, it's like, oh, that one. I know that one. I read that one. So this is my era, and I really enjoyed this, and revisiting this, as goofy as Catman was in this play. There's still a goofy Catman era. There's a place for that. So I really enjoyed that. So we're going to go ahead and head to what we learned.
Justice League International, Bwah-Ha-Ha podcast, a monthly show chronicling the adventures of the JLI era by Keith Giffen and J.M. DeMatteis. We started with the very first issue, and our coverage goes all the way through breakdowns. We're going issue by issue in release order, tackling 2 comics per episode, both a Justice League America issue and a Justice League Europe issue. Now, along the way, we're also taking time out for special episodes covering the quarterly book, interviews with various comic book creators, discussing the plethora of spin-off series, cartoon appearances, the infamous TV pilot, and more. And when we're all done, we'll wrap up our coverage by looking at the 2003 and 2005 stories, formerly known as the Justice League, and I can't believe it's not the Justice League. So join me in an ever-changing roster of guest hosts as we celebrate your favorite JLI members, such as
Batman,
Martian Manhunter,
Captain Atom,
Fire, Ice,
Rocket Red,
The Flash,
The Elongated Man,
Maxwell Lord,
Elron,
Power Girl,
Renard de Rousse, Crimson Fox,
Guy Gardner,
Metamorpho,
Booster Gold, Blue Beetle,
Nort.
Justice League International Bwah-Ha-Ha podcast, part of the Fire and Water Podcast Network. Want to make something of it?
So, David, what did you learn in this episode?
I learned that Gail Simone is absolutely amazing. She made a character like Catman into one of the most awesome hardcore characters in comics. And if you've ever watched her and followed her on Twitter, she's a delight. Definitely not a bear.
Oh, absolutely. She's very entertaining and has done a lot of great stuff in her own right. So, Shag, what did you learn in this episode?
Well, I have a backup, thank goodness, because my first point was exactly what Dave had. No one ever took Catman seriously until Gail Simone. So, but my backup is, don't bait Catwoman. Just don't do it. You're not going to like what the result of that is.
No, definitely not in this issue. She sort of took out her revenge after she got her growl out of the way. A growling Catwoman she was very entertaining in this issue. I liked the way she was portrayed.
Well, I think the reporter had it coming. She baited Catwoman. She went after her for no reason whatsoever. Right. Got what she deserved. So I learned my lesson. I won't be baiting Selena Kyle anytime soon.
So what I learned in this episode is, this Schrodinger delivery, they hired these couple of gentlemen. They need to revisit the interview process. They need to ask some questions, like common sense questions, like, ethical questions, because these guys were a couple of dingbats, and I think they wouldn't have passed if they would have asked some more important questions during the interview.
Might want to invest in some cages inside the truck too. Individual cages. So
that was the plan, just to throw cats in there. It reminds me of Dumb and Dumber, how they just threw all the dogs and threw food in there and it went everywhere as they're driving. It's just like the cats, you just shake them up in a box and let them loose.
How'd you describe them, Dave? Was it confetti with claws? Something like
confetti
that?
With claws, yeah.
So yeah, that was our episode. We really appreciate you coming on here, Shag. We had a blast. Do you want to give a shout out to your podcast network, that sort of thing?
Absolutely. I appreciate that. Well, first off, I just want to say thank you so much for having me on the show. Bill and Dave, you guys have been incredibly gracious hosts. You put up with my silliness, incredibly sparkling conversation. It's been absolutely a joy. And also, from the bottom of my heart, thank you both for wearing shirts since we're doing video. That meant a lot to me.
Okay.
Can't say the same about pants, but that's cool.
So if people wanted to hear more of me, and I don't know why they would want to, they could find me over on the Fire and Water Podcast Network, where we've got a ton of shows. There's a lot of different creators over there. I am actively involved in our Justice League International Bwah-Ha-Ha podcast, where I'm focused on the Giffen DeMatteis era of the JLI. And then I'm also doing a show called Once Upon a Geek, which is just sort of my exploration and talking about stuff that makes me happy. I've been doing that for a couple years now. And then also our other shows I appear on is Aquaman and Firestorm, the Who's Who show, Digest Cast, and then I'm in various places around the network.
Yes, great stuff. Great stuff. No, one issue that I really want to pick for the show, but it doesn't have a lot of Batman in it, but Batman is technically in it, is, the JLI issue, the One Punch. I just want to have it on the show so I can talk about it. But I love that show. One of my favorite issues, is actually Justice League Europe. I don't remember the exact issue, but it's when they go to have French lessons.
Issue number 6, the French lesson. It's a fantastic issue.
One of my favorites of all time. I love that issue.
It's between the French lesson and then the Moving Day, which is number 8 in the other show. They're just... I actually, the French lesson, I'm glad you mentioned that. I actually explained the plot of that to my daughter a couple years ago, who was a teenager, and she's just like, you know what, that sounds hilarious. I mean, she got it, and she saw the humor in it, and she doesn't care about any of the stuff we do, so that was pretty awesome.
I'm just saying, Blue Beetle and Booster Gold, that bromance is the core of that book. The fact that there's not been a Blue and Gold podcast is a shame.
Yeah, I never thought about that. That would be...
I did. I outlined it.
Yet there was a Silver and Gold podcast for quite a while with Captain Atom and Booster Gold. And then on that same network, they started a Blue Beetle show, but you're right, they didn't do one together. Interesting.
Yep. Money's on the table, as Ryan Daly once said.
Well, by the time I'm done with JLI, I'll have been doing it for 8 years. So I'm done. Someone else, please pick up that ball and run with it. And I'd be happy to listen to it every month.
Great episode, gentlemen. We'll be back in a few weeks with some more Batman goodness. So until next time, same bat time, same bat channel. We will see you later.